Imagine being 21 years old. You love children and you love working with children, and you get the opportunity of a lifetime to move to another country doing what you love. But that would eventually take a turn for the worse because the people who you trusted betrays you in the most sinister way possible. This is the story of Sophie Lionnet. What is good, YouTube? Courtney Elise here, aka Court Crimes TV, and welcome to my channel. If you happen to enjoy, please like, subscribe, and comment. Let's get into the video. Sophie Lionnet was born January 7th, 1996 in Troyes, France to parents Catherine Devallon and Patrick Lionnet. Sophie's parents would end up divorcing and Sophie's mother would remarry, but Sophie still remained close to both of her parents. Sophie was described as a very shy, reserved, and naive type of person. She was also a known animal lover. She loved animals, but her real passion was working with children. Once she finished school, completing a vocational childcare course, she was offered a position in London as an au pair. An au pair is a young foreign person, typically a woman, who helps out with housework and childcare in exchange for room and board. Since Sophie was from France, she saw this as an amazing opportunity to sharpen up her English and also to get her feet wet with working with children in childcare. So immediately she accepted the offer. Sophie was only 21 years old when she moved from Northeast France to the UK. This was shortly after her birthday. Once she got to the UK, she would be living with couple Ouissem, Medouni, and Sabrina, Koudier. I'm sorry if I mispronounced these people's names. Forgive me. Sabrina and Ouissem were both French nationalists who resided in London. Sophie's job was to watch over Sabrina's two sons. Now, from the outside looking in, this couple, Ouissem and Sabrina, looked like they had it all together. They looked like they were the perfect couple. Ouissem was making good money working in finance, and Sabrina was a very successful makeup artist and a very successful fashion designer. They seemed like they were the perfect fit for Sophie. They seemed like the perfect couple and family. But neighbors would describe this couple as odd, very antisocial, very distant, didn't talk, very cold. The couple was known to have a very tumultuous relationship, very toxic relationship. Ouissem and Sabrina had been on and off for years when Sophie came into the picture. In the beginning, Sophie loved her job as an au pair, and the children loved her as well. When she would talk to her mother on the phone, her mother Catherine said that everything seemed like it was going well. Everything seemed to be going fine, flowing easily. Sophie and Sabrina were also getting along very well. You know, one time Sabrina even gave Sophie a makeover because, you know, Sabrina was a very well-known makeup artist. All was going great until, unfortunately, like all stories like this, it went downhill fast. You see, Sophie would frequently visit a fish and chip shop, and the owner, Michael Cromer, who actually tried to go into business with Ouissem and Sabrina, said that he started to notice a change within Sophie. He said that although Sophie was quiet and didn't really talk much, he noticed that something within her body language showed that there was something going on, something was wrong. Slowly, she began to deteriorate mentally and physically. He even said that sometimes there were tears in her eyes, and when asked what was wrong, she would just try to brush it off by saying her mother wasn't well. So she went from this shy but friendly person to someone who was slowly becoming a shell of themselves. Unfortunately, Sophie's slow demise and deterioration would come from the hands of the people who she trusted, Sabrina and Ouissem. Sabrina had a very strange and bizarre obsession with her ex-boyfriend and father of her son, Mark Walton. Now, I promise you, I am not ranting, I am not rambling. This part is very instrumental into why what happened to Sophie happened. So it's not that I'm going off of the story. Just stick with me here. Mark Walton was one of the founding members of a boy band called Boyzone before he was eventually pushed out by the other band members. Mark and Sabrina's relationship would only last from 2011 to 2013. And just like her relationship with Ouissem, her and Mark's relationship was a very toxic and tumultuous relationship. Mark described this woman, Sabrina, his ex-girlfriend, the mother of his children, as a very crazy and just overly obsessive woman. He said that she would go from being this sweet talking person to, at the drop of a dime, flipping out. And it didn't matter where she was. This type of attitude would be the reason as to why they weren't together. Mark was like, nah, I'm not dealing with no crazy woman. Okay, I'll be supportive of you with our child, but we not gonna be together. Now, Sabrina rubbed me as the type of person or woman who was like, if I can't have you, no one else can have you. If you're not going to be with me, I am going to make your life a living hell as much as possible. And to Mark, she did just that. She would accuse Mark of some of the most disgusting and sick crimes you could ever accuse someone of doing. Like, she accused Mark of S.A.ing, I can't say the word, their cat. Get this. They didn't even have a cat. Mark don't even have a cat. Okay, so that's number one. She also said that Mark was using black magic on her and hiring a helicopter to fly over their house, the house that her and Ouissem was staying in with their children, to spy on her. Y'all, this woman is psychotic, delusional, crazy, all the things I can't say on YouTube, she's all of it. It's even noted that Sabrina called the cops on Mark over 30 times. All of these accusations she made against Mark were obviously false. But it's like, what's wrong with you? It had gotten so bad that the police would ultimately give Sabrina a caution, which I'm assuming is a warning. Now, I bring all of this up because Sabrina started to fully believe that Sophie was starting to have an affair with Mark. Sabrina was convinced that Sophie and Mark were concocting a plan to ruin her and her family, to ruin her life. Now, excuse me if I mispronounce this word. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to disrespect anyone who has this, but Ouissem and Sabrina suffered from a very rare psychological disorder known as folie à deux, literally translated to madness for two. This is a psychiatric syndrome in which delusions and beliefs are transmitted from one individual to another. So pretty much she somehow manipulated Ouissem into believing her crazy delusions. They started to interrogate Sophie. Now, Sophie does not know who Mark is. She's never seen him, never heard of him, never met him, and vice versa. So they started to interrogate this girl, demanding answers from her. They demanded that Sophie tell them the truth, tell them the plan that her and Mark had to ruin this family. As you can expect, because Sophie doesn't know who this man is, this infuriated Sabrina. With Sophie being so timid and shy, Sabrina took advantage of this. She used Sophie's weakness and shyness to her advantage. This is when Sabrina started to beat Sophie because she wasn't getting the answers she wanted. Mind you, Sabrina was beating this girl right in front of Ouissem, and Ouissem would just turn the other way as if it ain't have nothing to do with him. He wouldn't look away for long though, because he would eventually join in on those beatings and interrogations. They unfortunately easily broke Sophie down. They were constantly beating her, shouting at her, using vulgar language with her, and threatening her with R if she didn't confess to what they wanted her to confess to. I'ma also add that they were videotaping and documenting all of this on their phones for months. Eventually they stopped paying her, even though they forced her to work 80 hours per week. These people also stopped feeding her. This caused her to become extremely frail and thin and also weak. Sophie was so down on her luck with this family. She doesn't know why they all of a sudden turned on her, that she somehow got to a phone and called her mother and said that she wanted to come home, and her mother actually sent her a ticket for her to come home. Sophie's ticket home was short-lived because Catherine, Sophie's mother, said that she received a phone call from Sabrina saying that Sophie was not coming home. She said that Sabrina told her that Sophie had stolen some jewelry from her, and until everything was solved, then she could come home. But until then, there was no coming home for Sophie. Sabrina was continuing to beat and interrogate this girl day in and day out. Sabrina was starting to nitpick at every little thing Sophie was doing. It said that Sabrina one time beat Sophie so bad because she dropped butter on the floor on an accident. Y'all, I feel so bad for what Sophie had to go through at the hands of these crazy lunatics. My heart goes out to her and her family for knowing what all transpired. But unfortunately, the beatings and interrogations and everything, it got worse, because in September of 2017, firefighters were called to the residence of Sabrina and Ouissem. Neighbors had called the fire department because there was a foul-smelling fire that had started in Ouissem and Sabrina's garden. Once at the residence, the firefighters were met with Ouissem and Sabrina barbecuing chicken next to this raging, disgusting smelling fire. When asked what were they burning, like why were they burning this, what were they burning that smelled so bad, Ouissem shrugged it off and said, oh, it's just a sheep's carcass. Obviously not believing what these two lunatics has told them, they extinguished the fire, and they quickly come to the unfortunate realization that this was a body burning. One of the firefighters said that he noticed the nose, fingers, clothes, and jewelry within the ashes. The human remains that these sick individuals were burning was none other than Sophie Lionnet. The police were called, and both Ouissem and Sabrina were arrested on the spot. You know how trifling these people are? You know, it's sick to me that these people were barbecuing next to a burning body. Ugh, that's disgusting. This girl's body was so badly burned that they could never come to a conclusion as to what exactly caused her death. But they came to a conclusion that she died one of three ways. She died from either major blows to the head, strangulation, or drowning. She also suffered from fractures to her sternum, 4 broken ribs, and a broken jawbone. While being interrogated, Ouissem said that Sophie accidentally drowned while being interrogated about being in a relationship with Mark Walton. He said that him and Sabrina would force Sophie to sit in a bathtub and make her answer questions about Mark. And if she didn't answer him right, this is when they used the waterboarding technique on her. Sophie going through all of what she's going through, I'm pretty sure she confessed to this because she just wanted it to stop. And Sabrina told her that if she would just confess, all of the beatings, everything would just stop. Everything would cease. Unfortunately, this false confession would lead to her untimely demise. Ouissem said that he would punch Sophie in the head and she would slip under the water and die. Ouissem said that he then took her body out the bathtub, put it in a suitcase, then put it in the shed, then took the body out the shed and started to burn it in the garden. Now the plan was to just tell everyone that Sophie had suddenly left and went back to France, and that was it. Ouissem tried to enter a plea for manslaughter, but that was quickly rejected. They were like, nah, you about to take this full sentence. He then found out that Sabrina and her lawyers were trying to put all the blame on him. Now remember, I just told you he confessed to the police in the interrogation that he did all of this and all of that. Once he found out about this, he quickly retracted his statement about punching Sophie and making her drown in the bathtub. He said he only said that to cover up for Sabrina. His new story was that he had woke up one morning and he heard Sabrina saying over and over to herself, "What have I done?" He said he then went over to the bathroom, looked into the bathtub, and he saw Sophie lying in it, not breathing. He said that he tried CPR on her, and when he failed to resuscitate her, this is when he put her body into a suitcase and decided to hide it in the house. I don't understand these people, because Sabrina's story is exactly the same as Ouissem's story, but she's blaming Ouissem the same way Ouissem is blaming her. This couple, I don't understand. Both Ouissem and Sabrina claim that they were both asleep when Sophie was killed. So you see, they were both pointing the finger at each other, trying to blame each other and trying to wash their hands of this entire thing. When I tell you Ouissem retracted his entire statement, he retracted everything he originally said. He told police that he would always see Sabrina beating Sophie mercifully, that Sabrina was just crazy. He said that he wasn't a part of any of the beatings, he didn't take a part of any of the beatings, any of the interrogations, that the only thing he can confess to being a part of was burning her body, trying to dispose of this girl's body. Yeah, okay. Dude, your first statement was 100% true. You beat this girl, she accidentally drowned, and that's that. Okay, that's what I believe happened. He also tells police that he remembers a time where Sabrina had beat this girl so bad with an extension cord that Sophie couldn't even walk for a few days. You know, even if you weren't supposedly a part of these beatings, why didn't you call the police? You know, why didn't you report your girlfriend for being crazy? Why? He says that he realizes he should have gotten help for Sophie and that he should have just sent her back to her home, potentially saving her. Okay. He said his reason for not calling police was because he really wanted to protect Sabrina. Now my thing is, your girlfriend, the one you're protecting, the one you're trying to protect, is still obsessed with her ex-boyfriend. You're her current boyfriend. Like I said, they had this weird, rare psychological disorder, but still, this is your current girlfriend beating another girl because she thinks this girl is messing with her ex-boyfriend and you're joining in on it. Like, I don't understand it. Police eventually went to go search the couple's home, and this is when they found the videos of Sophie being interrogated on the couple's phone. They said you could hear Sophie being slapped and punched in the background. In one of these videos, it said that you can hear Sabrina telling Sophie that if she would just confess, that she would protect her. She said that she would just protect Sophie, everything would be fine, and that she would kill Mark and eat him right in front of her. I mean, how sick are these people? Like, who tells somebody they just gonna kill somebody and eat them in front of them? I digress. The police said that they noticed these videos were taken right before Sophie passed away. It's so sad to me that they pretty much tricked this girl into making a false confession, and they knew they were going to kill her regardless. You know, if she said she did it or if she said she didn't. Investigators also found a note that Sophie had wrote. In this note it said, "Why me? I have to stop them." I can't imagine what this girl went through, what was going through her mind, if she ever thought she was going to get out of this alive. I can't imagine what she was going through. It's so sad. Continuing to search this couple's home, police never found Sophie's passport. It's assumed that Sophie and Ouissem destroyed it. That way they could keep Sabrina under their control. Mark Walton was also in attendance and spoke at the trial. He described Sabrina's crazy antics. He also said, which is not a surprise to anyone other than Sabrina and Ouissem, that he's never met Sophie. He's never heard of her, doesn't even know about her, never knew she existed. There was also another witness who said that he also heard Ouissem and Sabrina attacking Sophie. He said that he heard the water splashing when they were, doing the waterboarding to her by pouring water over her face. He said he heard everything, which is crazy in my opinion, because why didn't you report it if you heard Sophie screaming? I don't understand that. I just don't understand that. Now in court, Sabrina had the audacity to write a letter to Sophie and Sophie's family. In this letter, it states, "Dear Sophie, may peace be with you. First of all, I wish everyone, including Sophie, especially her parents and family who are suffering badly, to know how deeply sorry I am for what happened to Sophie. We shared many good times together as well as pains until things went horribly wrong and it ended up in this horrendous tragedy. I think of you every day and I am shocked and sad that you are not part of this world anymore. It feels like a horrible dream to me that I wish I could just wake up from. Every day I live with sadness and sorrow. I'm suffering every day thinking of you and what happened to you that dreadful night. I only wish I could turn back the clock so that it never happened to you and you would still be alive with us today. I will now live with hope, and I can't ever imagine ever being happy again. I struggle every day and I am very disappointed in myself. Sophie, I wish things could have been different, and I hope that you rest in peace with God. With deepest regret, Sabrina Koudier." Girl, go ahead with that old selfish apology. After that old weak, selfish apology, the jury found both Ouissem and Sabrina guilty of murdering Sophie. They were both sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 30 years. Upon her sentencing, being the selfish individual she was, Sabrina would cry. Girl, Sophie's mother also made a statement in regards to everything that happened, addressing Sabrina and Ouissem. Here's what she said. They broke her until she could no longer fight. No God will ever forgive you for what you have done to my daughter. You are both equally evil as one another. Sophie's father also made a statement which really touched me. I will never hear Sophie say to me, Dad, I'm getting married, or Dad, I'm going to have a baby. This story is so sad because Sophie genuinely didn't know what was going on. She was terrified. I know she was terrified. And these crazy lunatics saw a weak individual and took advantage of her and killed her in the most horrendous way possible. They tortured her, waterboarding, beating her with extension cords. It was just so disgusting and disturbing. But that's the end of this video. If you have any opinions, if you want to discuss it down below, leave a comment and I will reply back. Thank you.